Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and MBs, and welcome to waruideshou's Deshou the Third, our top tier premium prime rib podcast for patrons who are donating $5 or more to us each month. It's so good that Doc is throwing up the gangster signs, and also
I'm trying to make it D. There we go. D3.
this is the worst. This is the worst ASL I have ever seen. Jesus Christ. I mean, we're doing this on a podcast anyway that's supposed to be going out in MP3 regardless, so... Oh, God, I don't even know, like... Well, that being said, though, Doc is certainly already getting on the thematic level by talking about performance here, because we are indeed covering Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, and I managed to get that right, which means I've clearly slept at least just enough to be able to handle that.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm Shadon, and joining me from across the pond is Mr. Tennessee himself, who has, found his place. He's found his home now in this show, finally, is, of course, the Subtle Doctor.
Hello, fam. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome, all friends. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope everyone is safe and as healthy as they can be. And once again, it's Friday. We're podcasting on a Friday, which is a thing I love. And Shadon has got this bottle of blue liquid. Or was that a can? I actually couldn't tell.
It was a can.
Okay.
And this stream is brought to you by alcohol.
I know, right? Well, this anime is brought to you by alcohol.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This is like, it just the cells probably smell like sake, just like forming a sedimentary layer beneath the surface of this entire universe of Rakugo.
I mean, Tsukuroku at this point, he's powered by alcohol. He just wants to entertain people. He's perhaps a bit, uncouth and a bit unvarnished. I'm feeling kind of a kinship to our lovable jackass, but hey. So,
when he was, walking through the alley saying, what was it? Wanna drink, wanna drink, wanna drink.
I put that on Twitter. I was like,
I saw that.
Please tell me I'm not this bad. Surely. and I was just waiting for the else to comment. No, Shaden, you're not that bad. It's fine. You just happen to be worse. I mean, there's the comedy singer for you. All right, itself.
Right.
Anyway, yep. So we're going to be covering episodes 7 through 9, inclusive of Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju Season 1. And this is our Deshou the Third format, which is basically the same as our second stream format, which is also incrementally getting closer to our regular Stream of Thought format. And oh my God, how did I say that without taking a breath?
That was pretty good.
I
applaud you. It seems like you yourself have the lungs for Rakugo. I think you should start touring the city.
No, oh God, no. Like, I actually did do a stand-up performance of fiction once, but that's not the same as literally leaning down on your knees and yelling at about how burglars steal sieves but leave their sandals behind.
That's good. So did you? Okay, I need to know more about this. Like, were you reading from a manuscript, or were you kind of riffing, or how did it work?
Well, this was a couple of years back, and I'm sure we discussed this in the early days of our podcast back in 2016, but I can't remember what happened last week, so fuck it. I can't cast any shade on that.
Hey, pun.
Basically, back in the day, when I was still creative, I was writing a lot, and what I would also do is I would write short stories. And I eventually found out a club I used to go to pre the bad times. They had a flyer there one evening for a reading night where people would bring their own fiction in and read them out to an audience.
Okay.
So what I decided to do for a laugh was start writing some short fiction specifically for that night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going and reading these stories out over the course of a couple of weeks.
Wow.
I eventually quit because unfortunately I came to the conclusion that the organizer was full of shit.
Well, that's not good.
And also because people were I asked people to come along to support me, and no one ever bothered. So I was like, "Well, I take the hint." So, yeah.
What did the audience think?
Well, one of them ended up being good enough to get published in Starburst magazine. Actually,
hell yeah,
so that's something.
Fucking A, man! Congratulations, that rules. I'd never heard this story.
That was quite something. I got headhunted after that, which was quite nice.
That's excellent.
But nothing more ever really came with it than that. If I ever get around to it, I may revisit the prospects of just writing that sort of stuff someday, if only because I want to start writing again, as I keep saying on this very podcast. But unfortunately, I just don't have the energy or the motivation for it right now.
Dude, it takes so much energy. Writing is one of those things, like, if people haven't done it, I think they just assume, like, oh, if you're a writer, like, words will just flow out of you like water, pour liquid
my
pouring
muse,
into the...
it doth speak to me this morning.
Or, how hard could it be to do FS? God, it's like one of the most draining. Like, in another life when I was an academic, I still work at the academy now, but like in a much less sort of rigorously research-focused job. Happy Friday, Catherine. So back then, I was doing a lot of writing, and it was for my job, and it was brutal, and it wasn't even fiction. It was writing philosophy paper, so it might as well be fiction. Hey, but like, and I remember,
we're gonna have some sort of like fugue state here, whether that is or is not fiction. Put your answer in the chat. Is philosophy fiction? I don't know.
Hello, Blue Sea.
Hello, Blue.
And I remember, like, I won an essay contest as a graduate student, and the first thing, first of all,
What's the essay called? Was it really the best of times? Or was it
Well, this was a philosophy paper, so this was what was it? I think so. This was in another life when I was actually a devout Catholic, and so it was about the philosophy of religion and how
for everyone. Seriously, like the idea of religion to me is just it's the greatest all-you-can-eat buffet. I have more respect for religion than that normally, I should stress, but come on. Like, dude turns water into wine and you're telling me I'm not going to treat that like happy hour? Come on.
Well, so to try to make this a short thing and not a gigantic tangent on my part, like, I had to read my my paper in front of a small audience, and on the drive to the University of Memphis, where I had to read my paper, pulled over to a gas station and threw up in a garbage can. Because I just get so nervous before, like, I hate, like, once you're up there, I feel like, once you're in the moment, performing your Rakugo, once you've started, like, then all the pressure's off me because I've done so much prep. I just kind of can go into autopilot and read and talk and everything. But, like, those few hours before it's going to happen are just so, like, nightmarish. It's such suffering for me as someone who has quite a bit of anxiety about a lot of things. Like, that kind of public speaking is very difficult.
I
and
I actually didn't find it too bad in my case. I think I was just more in the end annoyed with the people running the event, but that's gossip and bitching that is neither in or there nor relevant to the point at hand. So yeah, that was a thing. Okay, so anyway, on to the topic at hand, though. We're not here to talk about, like, Days of Yore and all that shit. Although we are, I suppose, talking about an anime that is about the Days of Yore. So there we go. Anyway, next thing we need to point out.
You got a thumbs up for your... I've now hit the pop filter again. You got a thumbs up for your Sailor Moon tweets in chat. So keep them coming, buddy.
Oh god, like the one where I recently said that, like, Usagi learning to speak English was like Kizuna AI learning to say fuck. I'm sorry.
I missed that one, but yeah.
That's the only way I saw the episode going.
Yeah.
I could not see it going any other way. But thank you for that, Lucy. I appreciate that.
Incredible.
I will try and diversify into other things. I'm not going to also then do the Sailor Moon cooking show either. Because we all know how that would end up. Right, today I'm going to channel the power of Sailor Mars and her cooking shit. So there we go.
Is she the one who is a bad cook? There always has to be one, right?
Everyone. I think all of them are bad cooks, save for Ami, Sailor Mercury, definitely Jupiter, because Jupiter is a avowed cook. Usagi, like, every time she cooks, she commits a war crime, so that's a no to her. Venus, same issue, because she's basically the same problem as I. I like to think that Uranus and Neptune don't ever cook. They just, like, look at food and it magically turns into, like, hot cuisine.
Yeah, none of them look like they've ever eaten a full cooked meal in their lives. So tiny. It's because they've all taken the fat shaming episode to heart. Sorry, we shouldn't talk about that episode.
Bloody hell. All right, so on to the topic at hand then.
Yeah.
We're here today to talk about Rakugo Shinju. So this is our Deshou the third format, and this...
Yes.
Oh.
No, you go right ahead. You go right ahead. I was going to jump to creator talk.
Universal gesture. I got shit to say, and I'm like, oh god, like...
No, you go right ahead and lead me into creator talk.
Cool. So... this particular format, if you've ever seen any of our mainline free-to-air streams in the past, we often go through like a quite lengthy plot recap, which includes commentary and riffs with cracking jokes all the way out through that. But for second stream and Deshou the third, this particular set of podcasts we don't do that. We go straight into meaty talking points and we provide context as we go.
Meaty.
Yes, meaty and juicy. That's how we like it. I'm not sure we're talking about the same thing here, but anyway.
Juicy.
I'm going to turn that into a soundboard. If we get proper like Twitch subscriptions going, I'm just going to have it like everyone types one subscribes to our Twitch channel. It'll just go juicy. You know that'd work.
That rules. Please do that.
Yeah. So Doc's going to go through the creatives firstly. Then we'll talk patron questions, of which we do have one this week. And then after that, we will then move on to our talking points. Which, oh boy, do we have things to say about this show, because it continues to impress.
Yeah. It's newsflash, it's a good show.
Whereas what unfortunately is happening to Tsukuroku and Miyakichi continues to depress, which is a different thing entirely.
Yeah, I know. But we love to be unhappy on waruideshou. At least I do. So I'm.
Well, you've got Chainsaw Man. I saw that tweet before.
Yeah,
you were like,
exactly.
I knew where you're going with that. I knew where you're going with that. I've read your social media.
I enjoy media making me suffer. What can I say?
Wow.
In a certain kind of way. There's a certain,
thank you for clarifying on that. Let's not open the floodgates here to have like Goku Midnight Eye or something suggested in the future.
Yeah, that's a different thing. That's fun. That's not suffering. That's just hilarious.
The swans will fuck and cause like a plague to spread across the. I'm just like, oh Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's not happening.
Dude, we gotta watch it. We need to watch some more Yoshiaki Kawajiri movies on this YouTube channel and talk about them.
This is why I drink. Do you want to know why I drink, folks? It's not for recreational purposes. This is fucking medicinal. I'm just saying. There's
really listen. There are some really good Yoshiaki Kawajiri. I really like Vampire Hunter D. Most people like Ninja Scroll a lot.
I do like Ninja Scroll. I'll be fair to that.
Cyber City Oedo rules. And I haven't seen like Wicked City in forever, so I can't comment on that. But no, he does a lot of good shit. But he also did Goku Midnight. Which, to be fair, I haven't seen, but that thing has a reputation.
I've seen the first episode, and that alone was questionable.
Yes.
I mean, when your evil master plan involves swans fucking, I think that is a. I think at that point you're like off the deep end. You're into some just whack shit here. That sounds like the plot of a trauma movie to me. But anyway,
I think Daryl Surratt put that movie in his top 10 favorite anime of that decade. Or that is it a movie? Is it a show? I don't know. Really. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so let's talk about creatives for just a moment. Before we get into questions and such. And if you'd like to send us a question, of course, you can subscribe over on patreon.com/waruideshou. That's WARUIDESHOU. And if you subscribe to the $5 tier, currently named the Viking Experience tier, you'd be able to ask us questions about our Deshou the Third show, which is currently Rakugo Shinju. I do that all the time. But it will be changing soon. All the things will be changing. And if you're one of the patrons who are part of our Discord, and you're catching this either live or later, know that soon it will be your time. Soon it will be your time again to vote and help us figure out what we're going to cover. For
Sherlock anime.
Another one!
We're bookending this year. Because we started with a Sherlock anime, we're going to end with one.
Oh man, was that this year? Right. Holy hell, that feels like forever ago.
Well, to answer your question, Blue Sea, you've asked, are we going to do season 2 after we've done season 1? I'm going to say up front that I definitely 100% want to do season 2, but it's out of my hands to decide that. I can certainly put it in the list for it to be chosen, but it will then be up to our patrons to decide if they want, us to cover it immediately or maybe later down the line. So you know what? Rally your kinsmen, get them onto our Patreon, and have them
light the fires of Rohan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Look out for my coming in the east. It's just the second season coming down over the hill.
Oh my god!
But I guarantee it will happen sooner rather than later because I definitely want to follow up. I want to follow up because of the promise that this is given in terms of like how good this existing show is, but also what it means for the characters who are going to pick up where this leaves off. At least that's as I understand the format of the second season. So definitely put me down for that at some point. But I unfortunately don't have final say or veto power in that. I'd love to simply just like get a top hat and fill it with paper, like like when you're pulling something out of a hat. Like, okay, what have we got here? What have we got? And it would just all be Rakugo Shinju season 2. Every single piece of paper would say that.
Yes, that would be remarkable.
Although knowing my look, someone would substitute that for something wretched like WZ or Handshakers.
WZ.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We'd have to have James on for those episodes.
We have to ask James, like, so James, was this just as bad as sniffing glue, or did you do that afterwards to make yourself feel better?
A question that really could go either way. I have no idea how to answer. Yeah. For sure, totally. 2 comments now before I talk about creatives, because I just have to say this first of all. So right now I'm on the Anime News Network page for Rakugo, and the ads for this page for Fate Grand Order: Battle in New York 2020. Have you seen what Gaius Julius Caesar, the saber of this, whatever you call it, looks like? Because I just want to point out that they look fucking stupid.
I know what
terrible.
Nero looks like. I don't want to guess what Caesar looks like.
Terrible.
I'm going to assume a couple of things. Like, this is like the bingo card of Fate Grand Order designs. First off, diminutive anime woman.
No, I didn't. I didn't notice something. I feel sort of bad because I'm not. So, Caesar looks like quite a large-bellied person, and that's not what I was talking about in terms of making fun of their appearance. Just they have a really stupid look on their face, and I hate the leafy head crown so much.
That's surprising to me, not because again the trailer's popular, rather because I thought they're going to deal with the Nero route. They're going to turn Caesar into this uwu kawaii anime woman.
No, it's a what appears to be. I don't know if you can. I feel like it's a dangerous game in Fate to guess the gender of the servants just by looking. So I'll just say it's a large tie-wearing person. And again, I didn't see that part of their anatomy before I commented on it. It was totally the look on Caesar's face and the stupid leaf crown. Although this is probably what I get for making fun of things on this podcast. It comes back to bite
Battle
me.
in New York. It's obviously not referring to the Roman Emperor Caesar, but more like Little Caesar.
Yes, it's the pizza person. Yes,
very that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Very good. The other comments I had was I just happened to be looking at the column next to the episode directors is the voice actors. There is a seiyuu called Go Shinomiya. And I'm going to read you their credits because there are quite a few voices in this show. And it's like, this is the kind of credits list I love for voice actors. Okay. Just in this show, Go Shinomiya plays a barber. Or I'm sorry, just barber. Episode 13. Chuji from episode 5. Don't remember who that is. Futasume from episode 6, an unnamed one, I guess. Goldfish Peddler from episode 2. The cryptically named Guest from episode 12. Host from episode 9, the host and the guest.
Are you absolutely sure you're reading out their, voice acting credits for the show or their LinkedIn profile and what the previous jobs would be?
It does read like a LinkedIn profile. Master from episode 7. Old Man from episode 10.
I'll literally be the same fucking person.
No. And probably my favorite. Well, Goldfish Peddler's really good. This is right up there, though. Soba Shop Owner, episode 11. They're just to clearly have this person around. They're like, whatever you want to do. Oh, also in episode 4, they were waiter. So back to the LinkedIn resume business. They were just like, Shinomiya-san, you got to do another thing. We got another character that says like 4 words. Get on the mic. Oh my god.
Oh god.
Okay, quickly now, so we can get into our talk. We don't have a ton of people to talk about because all of the writers, the screenplay writers, we have talked about already, and we've talked about one of the episode directors before. That's Taro Kubo, who directed number 7. Was also the director of 2, but the director of episode 8 is someone called Fujiaki Asari, and Asari is episode director on. They look like they're an experienced episode director. First of all, a lot of times, we'll pull up someone's credits who's a director, and it's like, well, they've been a key animator mostly, but most of their credits here are for episode direction, storyboarding, unit direction, that kind of stuff. We've got some Bang Dream, which I think is still going on. We've got some Gatchaman Crowds. Shouts to that show. An excellent, weird adaptation of Science Ninja Team Gatchaman. We've got some production advancement for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the original and still the best one. Naruto, Madoka Magica. We've got Rakugo, of course, and unit director for 6 episodes of perennial sports show, Shonen Jump-y type thing. I don't know if it ran in that, but it feels like it could have. Underdog.
Oh, that was the actual title you were reading out there.
No. This is Yawamushi Pedal, but Yawapeda is like a perennial, much beloved favorite. That it feels like one of those kind of shows that like most people didn't watch it, but those who did just fell hard for it, and I really liked it as well. The director of episode 9, Nobukage Kage. I can't read. Nobukage Kimura. And Kimura looks like, let's see, there's a ton of credits on here for storyboarding and episode direction once again. We got some Oedo Rocket, a couple of those episodes. That was another kind of under the radar, really interesting show. Tokyo Magnitude 8, storyboarding and episode direction there. We've talked about that before. This person directed episodes 1, 2, and 11 of Suritama.
Ooh, very nice, very nice.
And did the storyboards of episode 1, 5, 7, 10, and 11 of the same, of Suritama. To mention another show by that same director of Gatchaman Crowds. Why I can't remember. Nakamura, I believe. And this person who we're talking about now, Kimura, also did the second season of Gatchaman Crowds, did some episode directing and storyboarding. Storyboarded 7 episodes. So doing a lot of work here. We got directed 5 episodes of Den-O Coil, which is a show that I have yet to see, but I keep hearing really good things about it, that it's sort of this like almost Ghibli-esque feel to it, but it's a science fiction story about the internet and such like. And one more show I'm going to mention. I'm not going to mention C-Control- The Money and Soul of Possibility because I really don't like that show.
You also struggle to say every single time, and I would too.
I can't remember if it's colons or hyphens or, but and I'm even reading it from the page.
If I ever type like C- whatever it was into my like command prompts, it would just cause my PC to blue screen.
Such a good idea, but like, man, that show just did not do it for me at the time. Maybe I'll revisit it one day. The one the one time that Nakamura, who we talked about with Gatchaman, Soditama, Welcome to Arabu's Office Trapeze, that guy sort of blotted his copybook, was with the C control. But the show, I actually did want to mention that this person storyboarded an episode, directed a ton of, and I'm just gonna go hard to bat for the show because I don't think I've ever talked about the show on Waruideshou before. Casshern Sins.
Ooh, I know of it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh man, I love that show, and I think in the main I love it for, and the thing I remember it is the designs, the mood, and the aesthetic. Now that's not to say that like the story is particularly bad, because I remember it being quite good, but I remember it not. It's not like anything like this incredibly nuanced and subtle character drama like we're talking about here. It's pretty straightforward, because it's this reimagining of an old Tatsunoko like superhero property. But it's like the dark, gritty reboot version. But it has character designs by the guy who directed a bunch of the My Hero Academia anime and did the character designs for Heartcatch Precure. Umakoshi, Yoshihiko Umakoshi, who is much beloved and for a good reason. So listen, if anything I said seems interesting, or you watch a trailer of Casshern Sins and you're like, this looks pretty sweet, definitely worth seeing. I really, really like that show a lot.
Nice.
But that's it. Those are our creatives for this time out. So now we can get down to business on the Rakugo.
Well, on that note, then let's get to Patreon questions. We just have the one. This one comes from Gogo Atomic Robot and goes something like this. Why do you think the episodes are untitled? As in, when you look at them on Crunchyroll, it says untitled.
Is that a Crunchyroll thing, or is that... Do we know for sure? Did someone just mess up the metadata?
When the episode... my answer to this would be when you see like the episode numbers appear actually in the show, there are Japanese symbols there. I don't know if it's kanji. This is the limits of my knowledge. So I don't think all of them are literally the same. I think it's just that Crunchyroll are, how do I put this politely? Bone idle. There we are. I'm willing to bet that they're not all literally untitled. I reckon that there is a thing to them, but yeah, got the job of Twitter over there. Although, okay, you know what? Let's not be so flippant. Let's not be so facetious.
Okay. Wikipedia coming through in the clutch.
Did do that for me in university.
Well, look, it helps us out when we need it least, and it's least important. The episode titles.
This is a pub question, isn't it? Pub quiz this shit.
The episode titles they're just episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, etc. So maybe they just didn't want to maybe there's something in like the back end of their database that they were like, if we do this and call episode 1, it's going to fuck up like the way our tables talk to each other or something.
That makes me sad though, because there was a perfect opportunity for them to do either a riff on the Friends naming convention for episodes or the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia naming convention.
Remind me, because I haven't watched either of those shows.
Wait, you actually missed Friends entirely?
I mean, sometimes it was on at people's houses or whatever, but no, I never sat down to this. I'm watching Friends.
The episode naming convention was Friends, when something like the one where XYZ.
Mm-hmm. That's where that's from.
Yeah, and the Always Sunny in Philadelphia one goes the gang something.
Wow. Okay, so I thought this was just a clever YouTuber that has come up with the one who blah like for an episode title. Okay.
The gang goes and visits the Tennessee bar. There you go. I'm quite impressed I pulled that off, actually.
That's good. I need to watch more Sunny in Philadelphia, but
there's some amazing episodes, amazingly funny ones. But anyway, it also somehow inexplicably features Danny DeVito coming out of a chair while soaked in oil and butt naked. So
it's not on Netflix anymore.
I will say, by the way, I'm going to bring this back to Rakugo Shinju. I would totally believe if someone said, like, oh, yeah, in one of the side materials, Sukeroku similarly burst out of a chair or a sofa while draped in oil and butt naked and pissed out of his face. I'd be
Oh,
like, yeah, I buy that.
absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt.
That's him to a T. Well, I suppose that clears up there. It's just basically that I was kind of half right and half right. So I'm all right. There we go. I just happened to be right. I just happened, both my guesses were going to be like, there's a symbol there, and oh yeah, they just could be bothered. So it turns out I was right on both counts. Yay! Whoop whoop! Love it.
Mazel tov.
So that's the only Patreon question we actually have for this week. But if you wanted to get in on the action, ask us questions as we're covering shows of all stripes. Get yourself to patreon.com/waruideshou. Sign yourself up for the $2, $3, $4, or $2, $3, or $5 tier, and you'll be able to ask questions of the show that the tier covers. Get yourself on the $5 one. You can ask all of them, all the questions, all day.
We have to answer as well, like substantively. We can't blow off your question, no matter how ridiculous it may be.
Yep, that's right. If you literally want to go like a few angry men on me or whatever it is, then by all means, go all in. Right. So talking points then. Oh boy, do we have things to say? I'm going to start with a very small thing, which is firstly, let's talk about the Tennessee bar.
Please.
The Tennessee bar, like that made me chuckle because I loved how blatant it was. There was just literally Tennessee. It's not like it's not anything fancy named or anything like that. Just no, this is it. But
here's just there's a foreign word. This is probably how Japanese people feel like when they see like kanji just thrown up, over here on someone's shirt, arm, or sandwich board or whatever.
Everything I've got over here, basically. But it just made me very sad, unfortunately, that we weren't watching a more modern version of this, where it turns out the Tennessee bar has a mascot that's shaped like a giant Jack Daniels bottle.
Yeah.
I mean, like you've seen Cheetan, the mascot who constantly gets gravely injured.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just imagine that, but it's the Jack Daniels bottle.
That would rule.
Yeah, just wondering. But anyway, I'm bringing this up partly because I found it amusing and thought of Doc when it came up. Although off-cast Doc mentioned Tennessee just in a DM to me, completely apropos enough, and I was like,
what does this mean?
What does this mean? And it turned out what he meant was, he meant the Tennessee bar. So there you go. Doc's now found his spiritual anime home at long last.
Yeah.
Congratulations, my friend. You are complete.
I would want to hang out there for sure. I mean,
I got bitching like jazz.
It's such a cool jazz bar. I mean, it's was like a 50s kind of deal going on, or is it? Do we know what year it is? Like, is this bar a throwback bar at this point, or is this bar contemporary?
In these block of episodes, Master Yakumo says that it's been 8 years that Higuiso has been a Futsume. Which to me would suggest, I think that he took that role on after the end of the war.
Mm-hmm.
So this can't be any later than the mid-50s, as far as I understand.
Do you say 8 years or 12 years? I can't. But either way, it's right around.
In the 8 years you've been a Fusume, etc., etc.
Gotcha.
So yes, that would suggest to me it's mid-50s. The reason I bring up the Tennessee bar though is this is a great way to get this block of episodes going as a reminder that what we learn that this show is actually about is the tension between two different things, and that is expressed for different ways. But in this particular case, it's the tension of the changing times versus the desire to remain immutable, to persist in a single form. And the funny thing is, that's both in terms of the wider society that's depicted in Rakugo Shinju, but also true of the characters. And what I love about the show is it's not strictly how shall I put this, monodimensional or one-dimensional in how it does this. Some characters are actively trying to bring about change. Some characters are actively influenced by it without having any say in their own in that, and some are influenced to change for the better as well. It covers the broad gamut. And the Tennessee bar in itself, is again an ongoing indication of how times are changing in terms of entertainment, culture sipping in, that kind of thing, So yeah, I thought I'd bring that up as a primer for what I'm discussing in a little bit. But I liked its inclusion just simply again as a subtle but welcome reminder that the times they are changing. You know, we've got the importation of American like culture here, jazz and all that kind of stuff. And it seems like, you know, the outside world is indeed changing with that. But the question the show is asking, at least, or rather some of the characters are asking, is that necessarily a good thing?
Mm-hmm.
Is something being lost here as it's worn away? You know? Because if they're not spending time, like, you know, if they're spending time at Tennessee Bar, they're not spending it at, like, you know, a more traditional drinkery that you might find in Japan at that time.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. And they're not, you know, like... they're dressing up in Western clothes and listening to Western music, and I mean, it's
notes by the way, Kikito and Sukeroku's attire, like the constant refrain of how Sukeroku looks like a bum. There's a half or maybe the quarter truth to that, because he obviously, like, you know, doesn't care too much about like his personal appearance to an extent, or like his personal hygiene or whatever. But on the other hand as well, like, you know, what's that standard they're applying to him here? Like, you know, who came up with that? Who decided that? Was that always a thing? Is there, like, you know, is he literally just universally, like, regardless of time period, considered a bum? Or is it more the case that, you know, they're just looking down on him because he's not keeping up with the times and changing his fashion to business suit, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, there's probably both elements at play. Maybe, but like
television.
yeah, right. Like, I think Sukeroku's problem is he, like, wants to color outside the lines and change too much, or at least not my problem with him, but his problem in the eyes of the Rakugo establishment. And like, so yeah, I'm so happy you brought this up, because this is one of my kind of favorite things about this block of episodes is the tension between change and like stasis, or gosh, to put it a different way, like becoming and being, sort of purity, kind of retaining an identity, conservation, and progressing or evolving. This is like just pivotal to like the story of human beings since like society has been a thing. I mean, this is what, you know, philosophers were arguing about in the ancient times when you had Heraclitus talking about rivers. All is change, right? You could never go through the same river twice. And Parmenides, who's like, we're all part of the one, and everything like has like a being that is just participating incompletely in the one. And then Plato comes along and tries to do a little bit of both. But yeah, like you go from that to, I don't know, like people in a way are talking about this today when they say things like, this new Gundam show doesn't feel like a Gundam show because it doesn't have elements A, B, and C. And it's like, well, it's trying to do something different and be unique. Well, if it does all this too much different, it's not Gundam and I don't want it. Well, do you want something that's the same, or do you want something different? And then just fight about like the identity of what something is.
So those conversations miss the most important question that should be asked about this, which is, if you approach honestly, of course, is that necessarily a bad thing? This is different. Sometimes it is.
Some people think
sometimes
so.
It's not.
Some people think when
a blanket assumption that because it's different, it's wrong is inherently like fallacious. It's right. It's not right.
I think the crux of it is like, do you think it's bad because they've put this label on it? You know what I mean? Like, is it? Is it? It's like, oh, it would have been fine if it were any other show, but this is Gundam, or this is Evangelion, or this is some other franchise, Dragon Ball, and I've got these expectations. This is Final Fantasy, damn it. And you know what? Final Fantasy is all sci-fi and like kind of quirky. And this trailer looks like Game of Thrones. I don't love it.
You know what's funny though? If you want to bring up Final Fantasy, up until 7, with possibly some concession made to 6, it was all fantasy. Like, as in fantasy setting, fantasy archetypes, fantasy style. And then 7, you get arguably cyberpunk future kind of thing. And that was the thing that I would argue kept Final Fantasy alive and made it into the mega franchise it is today. Although, I should stress that's a part of it, and obviously then there was the transition to PlayStation as well.
The fucking
like, there's a lot
marketing.
of factors in it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if anyone wants to say like changing from like established ideas and elements and motifs of a particular franchise is inherently bad, well, Final Fantasy would not be anywhere near as popular or as beloved as it is now if it didn't change.
I agree. Like
yeah,
like
and there's many concrete
should,
examples I'm sure we can point out as well that
totally
would fit that mold.
Would, for the sake of accuracy, point at Final Fantasy IV and say you go to the moon in that game. So it's there's some science fiction going on there as well. pre 6 and 6, I think you could make a good argument for. It's like techno fantasy because it's like half and half or whatever.
Punk.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But point taken that the roots are.
Well, we all know that 6 is complete fantasy because a man just suplexes a train.
So good. So good. Shouts to Sabin, wherever you are. Hope you're still suplexing trains. Phantom trains.
Oh, of course. Oh, man, imagine if you had Sabin in the remake and you took him through the train graveyard. That would take 2 minutes.
Man. This idea's never occurred to me before, but this is brilliant.
Yeah, take Sabin through the train graveyard and it's just over in 2 minutes flat. Oh, hi, Eligor, boss. Boom, dead.
This needs to be like a mini
Speed
game
run.
in what is the thing called? Duodecim or whatever. The
Dissidia.
Final Fantasy. Thank you. Yes, Dissidia. Anyway, before I got off track, yeah, I think like I love this tension, and I really like a point that the Yakumo, like the master, brings home when he's talking to, I think it's Kiku, or I can't remember, but he's talking about Sukeroku. He could be talking to him. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point is that you and I, Shadon, understand and know that, like in Japan, deference to elders and kind of sort of conformity, harmony, respect for those that have come before, respect for norms and protocol and processes and rank and everything like that is way more of a thing than it is for our culture. So that is already at play. But on top of that, the master says, when you look at Rakugo itself is this oral tradition passed down from elder to younger. And that's like the essence of it, is that the older people pass it to the younger, and the sort of wrapped up in that is a gratefulness on the part of the new generation to the previous one. And so it's even more symbolically important for Rakugo as an art and as a community of artists, an association, that you have this harmony among the generations and this respect for those that are ranked above you. And of course that filters down into the behavior of the younger generation. And the fact that Sukeroku is just flying in the face of it, it like doubly stings. And it is...
we need to be clear on this contextually, that Sukeroku is not doing this simply for a giggle. He's doing it because he believes it is absolutely necessary to ensure the art form survival, because he recognizes quite presciently that they are on the cusp of a sea change to how they consume entertainment, how people spend their free time. We're now, like, after the war, the world has opened up to Japan. We're seeing the importation of other culture, the French restaurant, the Tennessee bar. You can, like, the very first episode of this block, episode 7, opens with Kikiso's performance being played on the radio as mention of television, which I'm actually going to just piggyback off your point here and just say something, which is that we have to consider, like, this argument about Rakugo as a, is Sukeroku right or is he wrong? Because that's the debate you can have. Now, for my part, I lean towards him being correct, but I think that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater with what the masters are saying here.
Right.
But I think that they don't necessarily, as written in the show at least, entirely understand some of the reasons you would want to keep this. all this pageantry and all this like passing on and such. Because first off, make no mistake, like Sukeroku, he does step on some toes, but at the same time, in doing so, he's showing his mastery over Rakugo anyway. Like, why is he performing all these advanced works?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, he's clearly ready to do so because he can remember them for a start. And secondly, the audience are still enjoying them. They don't suddenly, like when he starts doing an advanced work, go, what? It's not like if you're a violinist, and you've practiced up to a certain level, and then you start playing a piece that's completely beyond your capability. Like the audience goes, wait, what the hell? It's all out of tune. It's not right. Something's off. But as presented, the audience are constantly lapping him up. Which, by the way, when I said about duality, this even extends to Yakumo himself, because he says to Kikuito, don't worry, the audience will, as long as the audience enjoy your Rakugo, that's fine. Yeah. But why can he not apply that same perspective to Sukeroku? Because Kikuito's doing it in the correct way,
indeed,
quote unquote.
Indeed.
But then again, that just seems like an hypocrisy, doesn't it?
Oh yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, it's an absolute hypocrisy. But here's the thing, right? Like, I think that this show itself just by merit of it existing, is an argument for an evolutionary approach towards art and tradition. By which I mean, Rakugo is an art, but it is also a tradition. I mean, you can have traditional art, of course, but like these things can be discrete from each other. Tradition is not necessarily art, and vice versa.
Totally.
And so what Sukeroku is arguing in favor of here is he wants to like change the art, take it away from the tradition, to make it into a form that will allow it to survive. But he's also not blind to the fact that the original like pageantry, like, and all this like generational passing on of the torch still should be there. He actually notes in a way that almost feels like meta commentary on the show itself that Kikiso fills that role perfectly of being the steward of traditional Rakugo, while he takes it more public, if you want to call it that.
Yeah. He sees like the whole picture in this regard. I think he understands that like his own limitations and what he's capable of, and he's like, a lot of people sort of just focus on their own Rakugo, but like, yeah, he's really seeing both he and Kikubon together, saying like, as we go forward, like, you will be like the one that sort of safeguards the purity of the identity of Rakugo. Like, as media changes and there's this sort of like the soul of Rakugo is tested. I want to be the one that tries to like take it to new frontiers. And it's really interesting, that whole thing about whenever he talks about the audience to anyone who outranks him, it's like his fucking trump card, because no one ever has anything to say about it. No. That's always what it comes down to, right? Because they're like, why are you doing this advanced work? Why are you excuse me, why are you doing this or that, like, thing that is bad for Rakugo? And he's just like, hey, the people love my Rakugo. What do you have to say to that? Yeah. Nothing.
That's the thing, like, if it was so deeply entrenched in tradition that it didn't ultimately live or die off the reaction audience, they wouldn't be performing it to an audience to begin with.
Yeah.
They clearly find a market for it. There is a demand for it. It's just that demand is dwindling because times and tastes do change.
This brings up... Sorry.
So go on. No, go on.
No, I was going to say... No, this is like and this made me think of kind of another interesting like dichotomy. Whether or not it's a real dichotomy is another discussion, but like the sort of the dichotomy between like the point of view of the fan and the point of view of like the critic, or maybe even a slightly different take on that, like the point of view of someone who has participated in an event and someone who's only watched it. That's a very common thing in sport, right? Like when there's a disagreement between a talking head, someone who has been like a professional broadcaster as their career, and someone who is like a jock, an ex-player, if they're being very petty, they'll just be like, yeah, you don't know, you never played the game. And in Rakugo, you have all these guys that are so critical of Sukeroku because they're like, look, Sukeroku is like always leaning on the popular, always like it's the audience is the main thing. The fact that they love it is all you should care about. But the practitioners have so much more, like, they're like, no, actually, like, I mean, that's important, and we never have anything to say to you when you bring this up, but like, really more goes into being a part of this community of artists than you want to say. And now, whether that is right or wrong is a really interesting discussion, because I mean, I think a lot of it is too much. I mean, what do they care that he drinks a lot, right? As long as he does his job really, really well. But
Yeah.
But the whole thing about like deference to elders and having certain stories you tell and having this ranking system and all that. I mean, in a way, I'm very sympathetic to the idea of like trying to preserve the purity of the soul of Rakugo, despite understanding that you have to change. I mean, I think, not to take the coward's way out here, but like, I think that like it's important that both perspectives be at the table when you're trying to like come to a solution to this, because Sukeroku is obviously, as we from the future understand that like television and all these other forms of media and entertainment are going to crowd out the market, certainly for Rakugo and for the theater in general. And that's like a huge consideration that they have to think about. But if they change everything about it, I mean, it just won't be the same thing. Like having that connection to like people that have performed Rakugo centuries and centuries and centuries ago is important, and it's a thing that's appealing about the art, apart from everything else as well.
What I need to mention. I was going to bring this up, and this is the perfect point for me to do so. Bear in mind that they're both Kikuiso and Sukeroku's
their rank, yeah,
their next rank up thing,
mm-hmm.
like that actually is a full-blown ceremony. Like the when I said about pageantry before, I wasn't throwing that word around like for laughs. The actual pomp and like ceremony is a part of Rakugo's performance, even though it is not Rakugo in of itself. But people want to see like who the next person is. They talk about it. They talk about who's going to become the next one, who's going to inherit the name. There is a drama, a soap opera build behind this.
Right.
And that's the thing I think that like you could argue maybe in favor of keeping it, in there, because it's not just about the actual stories now they're performed as well. The tradition that behind it is in of itself an appealing fact for an audience.
I agree.
Who consumes it.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself is an argument to keep that tradition there. But I would be remiss if I didn't also say that tradition can also be incredibly harmful. Like, it's not just a case of like, it's how you perform Rakugo is what makes people enjoy it. Like, this show wonderfully articulates how it's also about how people's lives have changed by it, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse.
Yeah.
Because I certainly don't think Sukeroku deserves anything that befalls him in this show. Not at all. He has a forward-thinking agenda that, like, the people who are, like, talking to him, the masters, are just completely inflexible about. And the thing is, like, by this show's very existence, it tacitly endorses his perspective, because there's no way the characters in this show, if they ever existed, would ever want to see Rakugo done in an anime.
Yeah.
Like, but by this show's very existence, it agrees with Sukeroku's perspective by showing how Rakugo can evolve and can be changed into a different format that still preserves and honors its tradition, but at the same time does something new to make it more engaging, like with the stuff with camera angles, presentation, animation, you name it. So just by, again, existing, it literally says he's right. But he's not wholly right. It's not a binary thing here. And this is where I was going to bring up, again, my favorite, Ikahara show, Penguin Drum, because you've got the character of Warui in that, who's an actress in Takazura Theatre. And she suffers immensely from all that. With the restrictions upon her, who she can and can't be with, etc. That's also a thing that happens in this very show, Ikihiso and Miyokuchi, because they do in this show, like, it's now clear to us, they do deeply care about each other. But he has a one-track mind of, I will pursue my Rakugo to the end. And unfortunately, that must mean sacrifices are made.
There's so much I want to talk about that. Oh, boy.
And it sucks. He shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. Why is it... there's not even a reason stated in the show for why that's... It's just the way, the status quo.
Yeah, I think...
And
so
that's bullshit.
I know. I mean, all he says about it is, like, so Master tells me I need to do this and settle down. And it's probably the idea of her profession, him dating this woman who's a geisha probably looks like the sort of like, oh, it's just like a fling a young person would have, but like it's sort of a rock star thing to do rather than like a sign of stability. And yeah, like Blue Sea is saying, it's sort of one of these like reputation things, and she's bringing up really good points about like the sort of that this practice still persists in Japan.
If I may just interrupt briefly, if that is true, why is Yako himself dabbling with her?
Is he still?
Hypocrisy again.
Yeah, I know. Well, exactly, right? I mean, it's like, yeah, I feel like once you get
responsibility.
Yeah, once you get old enough and you're like fucking established on the top of the mountain, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
That's there.
Yeah. But when you're on the rise,
there's the names of a couple of individuals going around my head right now. I'm like, oh fuck. It's sad because it's true.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am phenomenally impressed with how this show covers this kind of duality from so many different angles and so many different perspectives, even in terms of the same character, and how like there's just little moments here and there where characters like, you know, like they make offhand comments like Yakumo, and then it's called back later, but not explicitly. It's so fucking good. And I was like, when it's dawned on me that this was not simply just a character-driven historical kind of biopic kind of thing, but was willing to look at this hypocrisy and also then make a case mostly for the evolution of an art form, but also the preservation of of its traditional core values. It's not simply, again, a black and white thing of this is the only way, this must be done. Like, no, there are good and bad points from both that this show gets across, and that's fantastic.
Yep. Could not agree more. Totally with you.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to let you make your next point, though. While you start firing that up, I'm going to quickly go and get a beer. I'll only be
go for it.
So
go for it.
Back in a second, folks.
Oh boy, what's the next point I have? I have quite a few. And I guess the point I will make now that Shadon is away is just to talk about a scene I really liked from episode number 8, when after the big board meeting that the master has participated in, the Yakumo man, to elevate his 2 proteges and get them promoted, he pulls off the family like lineage book from the altar, spreads it out on the table, and you know, it's something that that is so kind of uncommon for him to do that his sort of chauffeur, servant, butler man, it's like, yo, master, what are you doing? And he's like, well, this is like the family lineage here, and I usually keep this book by the altar, but I want to let them know that something's good has happened. I like to let them know, as in he pulls it out, spreads it out, puts his hands on the pages, lets them, like, sort of opens this door or window for them to know what's going on in the physical world, like, since they have been gone. And, you know, this show, at least up to this point in the way I've read it, is not really like commenting a ton on like spiritual things per se. This is just sort of, you know, an aside, I think, part of this guy's life. And it's just something I always like to see in anime, like not just a spiritual thing, but this kind of incarnation of something spiritual, like in a physical object, like a physical, material, tangible thing that has value to persons, that has a sort of spiritual value to people and is important to them, like in a way that, you know, food or water or sex, a different way. But it's a physical, there's a lot of things like that are important to us that are also intangible. But I just love it when, like, I don't know, mainly because before I became Catholic, I was raised a Protestant, and
wow, you went more hardcore overtime and not less.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you want? All the bling, all the Catholic bling? Was that it?
I told you I like to suffer. Remember, so that Well, and so
Yeah.
and evangelical Christianity is very much about like eschewing those physical objects. Like that was a bad thing. We don't need any of that stuff. It's just me and God, and I can talk to him or whatever. But like, this is one of the things that appealed to me about Catholicism, right? Was that like you could have these physical intermediaries, be they people or objects that had spiritual value, that the ritual of using them, the ceremony around them was important aesthetically and internally to your emotional and inner life. And anyway, I just like to see that here with Yakumo having that. I mean, like, empirical, if scientist is going to comb over the scene of the house and be like, nope, no ghosts here. Like, there's no people who are benefiting. You're not letting anyone know anything, Mr. Yakumo, you piece of shit. Why are you lying to everyone? But like, he's still, I mean, he's letting his ancestors know that his proteges, his son, for all intents and purposes, he calls Kiku his son in one of these episodes, has been promoted, and that's like a really big deal. And I love that when, like the heavenly or spiritual kind of comes down to earth in these little ways. It's the thing about Japanese culture that I like quite a lot, and so I just really like that scene. I wanted to shout it out. Matsuda-san, yes.
Though, this show, like the framing device behind it is that it is a story being told in the past tense to two characters, one of whom is the daughter of, well, as it turns out, Sukeroku and Miyogichi. And I remember figuring out at the end of episodes, like for our last podcast, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
As it turns out, as it happens in the show, makes perfect sense. And I have a ton to say about that. Holy shit! But we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, like clearly, even its own way, the show again is approving of that just by merit of it, how it's constructed, how it exists, which is it is a historical narrative being told out of reverence for someone who has passed, but also to benefit the next generation, which is Kanatsu specifically. And that's also why I would then restate my previous argument that I think that I don't again want this to happen in the sense that it's literally just interruptions as the story flows, but rather there is like a break, if you want to call it that. Like say at the end of episode 6, where like, okay, I'm done talking for the night, says present day Bon. We'll reconvene tomorrow. Piss off, both of you. And then Kanatsu's just like smoking cigarettes, just like, I'm gonna think all this over. What have I learned? Like, it need only be brief. I'm not asking for it to be long. But I just think that having that reminder that they're there and they're as much of an audience as we are is important, especially given what I understand the second season to be about. But that being said, I haven't watched the full show yet, and nor have I watched the second season, so that can all be fixed later. It doesn't invalidate it just because it hasn't happened yet.
Hit me with your next talking point.
Okay, let's talk about some of the other great like directional touches in this show, because there's some stuff that I really want to know. The first of which is on the train ride back from their regional tour, which is a massive success for Yakumo and Kikiso. Note how they discuss his future, and they're going through like sunlit fields as they're driving, as they're going along on the train. It's all great. Then they go to Sukeroku as the topic of conversation. Tunnel, darkness outside. Yep. Tunnels associated like with a lack of direction. You don't know when you're going to come out. When do you ultimately get out of the other end of the tunnel? You probably don't know unless you go take the same train all the time. And then the moment you get out of the tunnel, there's that one comment about Sukeroku from the master and cut away. Like, there is a distinct directional choice here to present Kikiso's future as set in stone. It's all golden from here on out. Like, you can't fail. And Sukeroku's is lost in the dark. Like, that's great. I love it. Next thing is, in episode 9 specifically, there's a lot of use of negative space. So if you're watching this on Twitch and you can see my camera feed, imagine, if you will, something like, say, that chunk of the screen there, like completely cut off by black, and you've got two characters talking at the top. And I love how this is used both to express, in Sukeroku's case where he's talking with Yakumo, how he can move no higher because it's a compression vertically. But then it's also later used contrastingly, even though it's the same thing, to show Kikiso how he has ascended and now is up above because the negative space is at the bottom. But also then, like, there's one final moment that where it's Kikiso and Sukeroku having a heart-to-heart where Sukeroku's the one like, no, I was jealous of you. Like, right. You were treated like as a regular apprentice rather than a a lost dog, you know. So like the negative space, great. I love it. It was brief. It wasn't over exaggerated, but it was there. It compressed the characters, made things feel more tense, but also showed like how there was a ceiling placed on one of them, but also how one of them ascended. Like,
yeah,
great stuff. Next up, let's talk about Miyokichi's makeup. I mentioned this on Twitter, and I thought this was a great little detail. She's walking as a geisha and talks to Hikiso, and the conversation turns pretty sour pretty fast. He's like, "No, I have places to be," like, you know, and she starts crying. And when she cries, we get an explicit look of her geisha makeup around her eye, mingling with her tears, and that again is a representation of how professional lives blur with, you know, personal wants and desires, and how they can cause us pain.
yeah.
Next small detail. This was really tiny. It was kind of gross, but also I thought, wow, this is true. When Sukeroku is giving one of his performances, he's sweating, like he's putting his arms, he's putting like his fucking back into it. But at one point, very quickly, he just kind of licks a sweat bead that comes down the side of his face. But the thing is, like, apart from that being gross, like I think that was meant to like represent how he feeds on the audience's like enthusiasm to propel him forward. His hard work is literally like self-sustaining in a sense. So that was good.
Yeah.
And one final thing I'll mention, and this is like, again, me only scratched the surface. I'd probably go back and watch these episodes another 5 times each and still find things. Is that when Sukeroku and Kikuiso are having their conversation in Tennessee Bar about what happens next, I believe that they are a 90-degree angle to each other. So like you've got, for example, Kikuiso like looking this way, but Sukeroku's not like looking directly at him. He's like this, to show that they are of opposing perspectives.
They do that as well when the president of the Rakugo Association is talking to Sukeroku and them saying, well, I didn't really agree with it because I don't like the way you do stuff and carry yourself. You know, he's talking to the wall.
I don't like your face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Piss off, you little shit.
And Sukeroku's just like, yeah. Like, wait a minute. You're supposed to say, hi, sensei.
I'm going to read your shit. And I'm going to do and then of course he takes up his Rakugo fan at the end. He just goes, mic drop.
Yes, exactly.
the very first Rakugo mic drop, of course.
From Sukeroku.
But yeah, like that's just a scattering of the different things I noted as far as directional touches, dramatic staging, texturing of scenes goes. And please do more of it, shows in general.
Yeah.
It makes a kind of sense for this show to do that because of the fact that it is about theatrics. So staging things dramatically and theatrically makes a lot of sense. But along with just using all the various camera work it does in the Rakugo scenes, and therefore makes an argument for how that art form can be presented in such a way as to appeal to a whole new audience. It continues to also do that with the regular scenes as well, which makes them more compelling as a result. Also, final thing that just popped into my head, a lot of sakura blooms in the episode 8, which is all about the changing of the times.
Totally, right.
Ephemeral, sakura blooms, your go-to for the fleetingness of moments.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll drink this beer and then there'll just be sakura petals blowing in from the side.
Yeah.
This beer was fleeting.
I noticed a few of those things that you mentioned as well, like the sort of environmental storytelling, for lack of a better word, right? Like things happening in the background or in the scenery to bring home points that are being made by the characters or themes or whatever. Like whenever, like I loved it in episode 9, I believe, when Sukeroku and Kiku are having their last big fight, I think, in the apartment, and Kiku shoves him up against the wall after he said, like, you're just, Yakumo's precious little boy. He grabs him by the collar and shoves him into the wall, and their conversation gets even more heated, and the light overhead is swinging and flickering, sort of like the candle of their friendship is in danger of blowing out. Like,
you're right.
Good.
Something else. Both Sukeroku and Kikuiso, when they start having their more heated discussions with Master Yakumo, the camera or the storyboarding never frames them both in the same shot.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Yep, it's like if you could see like how me and Doc are framed right now. Imagine like if we were having a conversation, we just simply like framed separately. There's not a single moment feels wasted. like as far as direction goes. It's not just it's no laziness to any of this like storyboarding or direction. It's fantastic. And it's not even over exaggerated or overblown though. Like it still fits within the very like restrained aesthetic of the show, I would argue.
Totally.
It's very matter of fact, but it's still handled very, very well.
And
this is again one of those shows that I think I would argue that I could say to someone, all right, if I were teaching media, I would teach this. I would use a class to teach this.
Yeah, completely. I mean, just the stuff they do with the trains. Like, you know, when the Yakumo is kind of poo-pooing Sukeroku and everything that he's about, they cut to like this shot of a static camera on the train tracks, and the train is just barreling toward it, as in, you may not like Sukeroku and his ideas, but both the ideas he's talking about and his style of Rakugo are undeniable. At this point, you can't stop them. History, you know, it's coming. Things are moving forward, whether you like it or not. And I mean, the train in general, right, is like represents that motif that we're talking about of like the change and the always moving forward in time. And there's also like, I mean, this amazing shot toward the end of the show, or toward the end of the block of episodes, where Sukeroku is like walking in the opposite direction as the train. And I think in that shot, like the train is less about like the times and more of like, you know, you've missed the train. Now you're off the train of like the Rakugo Association. You're out of Kiku's life. Like that sort of phase of your life is now going on without you.
Well, Sukeroku's always been off the rails anyway, so you know.
But you know, there's so much stuff like that.
Kiku Iso's giving him some mixed signals.
he definitely. He's a complicated fellow, and I know we'll talk about that. But yeah, I'm glad that we have this section called "Little Touches We Liked," because that stuff rules in this show. All right.
Okay, I believe so. It's you now, Doc.
Oh, I mean, gosh.
Do we want to go into the big talking point?
Where do I go here? Well, I'll just say that there are a couple of scenes here between, and this will probably lead into what you want to say, I think. There's a couple scenes between Kiku and Miyokichi that are just incredibly difficult to watch. So hard to watch because he's such a cold motherfucker. He's the most. I have to say though, like I agree, but it's so deeply ironic that he is like that. I know. In a manner towards her sex workers, like people like who use her services are cold to her as well, just inherently in a different way. Right. Like it's kind of, I can understand like why she's so hurt by it, because he's one of the few people who has not treated her like an object or a piece of meat. Mm-hmm. But even after getting past that point, he's still like one-minded, you know. Yeah. But also, by the way, in fact, I'm jumping around here because I want to mention there's an amazingly powerful moment where there's the scene between Sukeroku and Miyokichi in episode 8 where they basically talk out their problems to each other. Which, by the way, is again a great amount of duality in this, because Sukeroku has been expelled because he wants to push things forward. He's the one driving it, whereas Miyokichi's profession has ended without any of her saying it whatsoever. Yeah. They are both wounded by the times that are trying to change or not change, and it almost feels like a kind of yin-yang kind of thing. It's fantastic when you think about it like that. But yeah, they're having a conversation, and I don't know if this was because Sukeroku was just drunk. Maybe he was getting a bit too forceful. Maybe he was trying to comfort her however best he could. He pulls her into an embrace, and she's like, no, get off me. And, of course, as per Dramatic Convention 101, Kiku Iso is there and sees it all. Yes. Well, first of all, thank God, because, because Mio is like, what are you doing? And Sukeroku is like, I don't know. Clutches her tightly, even more tightly, and just like, I need more beer. Like, don't, yeah. But yeah, this is a very all three characters are becoming very tragic now at this point in the story. And yeah, just seeing like how Miyokichi sort of like is the water that breaks upon the rocks that is Kiku, right? I mean, like,
Well,
he's
that's the yes, because the thing that I was going to mention, the specific moment, is that she runs over to him, and I can already see, like, from that scene in her head, what she needs to say. Like, it's not what you think. We're not doing anything. He just pulled me into my arms. I'm serious. I've only got eyes for you. But Kiku's response is, meh.
do what you want.
IDGF.
Yeah.
IDGF, yeah. I don't give a fuck. Like, why should I?
Why would I care?
I'm not angry. I would need to be angry. And the thing is, she moves to slap him, and the reason she does that is because she wanted him to be angry. She wanted him to be furious. She wanted him to like raise his cane in anger at her or something like that. Whatever response she wanted something from him to prove that he cared about her that deeply, that he would seem so wounded.
Yeah. She wants to be wanted, right?
Yeah, but the problem is she didn't realize that she's dealing with a professional actor. So the hurt is there.
Yeah.
Deep down, but he already had thoughts himself, you know what, I've got to break it off with her anyway.
Because he had to make this fucking stupid choice.
Yeah. So he will do what he does best.
Yeah.
He will act.
Yeah.
And I felt for her so bad because, like, I don't agree with her trying to slap him, but I can understand why she felt pushed at that point. She wanted something, anything, a sign that he loved her. And sometimes the way that's happened is to unfortunately hurt them. Like, I don't agree, but I can see how it gets to that point. And he doesn't give it to her.
Yeah. I mean, he's always been, it's terrible. It's so hard to watch. And like, I mean, he's always been not cold, but like, he's not the most affectionate guy. But like, it's clearly on a different level how he's just like become a wall to her. And it breaks her and it angers her. It's almost like the Kiku that she knew has been sort of taken from her. And she doesn't understand why. And it's not fair because it's fucking not fair. It's ridiculous. And her life is...
It's literally in line with his promotion. That's the funny thing. If you think of it like as a larval state kind of thing, you're like, you know, he's turned from a caterpillar, you know, butterfly kind of thing on. Like, she doesn't recognize him anymore, kind of, sort of, in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's the thing is, like, Kiku says to Tsukuroku, like, after she leaves, I do love her.
Yep.
Like, I genuinely do think that they do love each other. I think that their relationship probably isn't necessarily as traditionally physical as certainly Miyokichi's like might be otherwise used to. But, well, that's like secondary in my own mind to actually having a genuine emotional connection.
Totally.
Like, I can think of the earliest scenes, like when she's rubbing his, like, you know, wounded knee, like, you know, basically not healing that particular wound, but healing the things that came with it, like showing him sympathy and compassion about how this has burdened him throughout his life.
Yeah, and that's probably, this is a great point that you bring up, Shadon, because, I mean, that's another reason probably why she's hurting so bad is like, you know, she did that for him. She was there when he was at his lowest point, and now she's hitting her low point, and she doesn't get anything from him. I mean, it's like, there's this old French proverb that I don't believe is actually true.
Non, je ne regrette rien.
It's
Is that it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
But it's in every relationship there's one who bestows the kisses and one who extends their cheek. And you know, it's what I thought of when I said, like, clearly Miyokichi is the one who is giving and getting nothing back. Or not getting, so in the beginning, not getting as much back, but by this point, getting nothing back, even though, yeah, I mean, she helped this guy get over, like, these really big emotional crises, and just now when she probably needs him more than any other time, like, and she's, you know, been so vulnerable to him, revealing, like, you know, that she, like, doesn't really need any money. She doesn't have like this sort of lofty goal about like a calling or profession.
Well, here's the thing, right? She is a sex worker, so inherently she has to act at a certain arm's length with her clients.
Mm-hmm.
Don't mix business with pleasure. Don't like. I should stress. I need to again do this kind of card saying thing here, like from my perspective, which is that I've like read, for example, about how there are women in the adult entertainment industry who are sex workers, like porn artists, you name it, who do have long-term partners.
Mm-hmm.
That and for you know what, that's great. That's fucking brilliant. That's wonderful because I can certainly imagine a lot of men, probably myself included, if I'm being so honest, who probably wouldn't be comfortable with that. But the thing is, like, why is this relevant to Miyokichi? Like, she unfortunately probably sits in that position where she has never had, apart from that one guy who took her out to, like, and left her for Deshou, but that's not a genuine connection. Like, she had it at some point, and then that got took away from her. But like, she has spent much of her life deliberately experiencing how there is no genuine connection with men, and so she finds it in Kikuito. And so no wonder she wants to cling on to that so desperately, because it's something she knows with all, like, simply by the absence of him having never given her any money in that alone, and also just how he's treated her, like, he is genuine. And it's awful. But that actually leads me on to my next thing I was going to say about Miyokichi, which is this. I feel conflicted about how she's presented in the show for one reason and one reason alone, which is that we don't see what happens to her in her line of work. We know it's what she does. We are told it, but we are not shown it in the same way that Rakugo is shown. Even though I would argue there is a thematic comparison to be made, because there is an active performance in doing sex work, which is to say that obviously, you know, like, you are performing a service for, let's say, you know, it's a man in this case, and it could very well be that you have no physical attraction to this gentleman who's paying you for your service whatsoever. Might even enjoy it. And then how does that play into it? Like, you know, do you feel it's a form of sexual violence? Like, there's a lot to explore and cover here, and it is a form of performance, I would say, in that case, that you can't, like, obviously allow yourself to be attached to these people. They are there for a certain amount of time. But the thing is, Miyokichi's, like, profession is mentioned, and I'm glad it's mentioned the way it is, like, with how, like, the anti-prostitution law came in, and that's it. It's over. Like, the times change. Like, it gels there. That works. But I can't help but feel a tiny little bit here and there that she's getting the short shrift as far as character development goes versus Sukeroku and Kikuito.
Yeah, I think so.
Because her profession is not being given the same kind of up-close examination. It's just something we mention that she does, and we'll just leave it at the side and let you divine from that, as opposed to what we see with the Rakugo. I can, for example, this is me, like, you know, again, saying, hey, I've got an idea, and it doesn't make me right, but I'm going to put it out there. I could totally see how you could storyboard a scene where you could have Kikuito performing his Rakugo, and you could intercut back and forth to Miyokichi performing her sex work. Not without, obviously, whoever she's doing the sex work with, but you can see, like, how she's saying things to this particular guy that she's with, like, you know, that, like, performance, like, you know, that kind of thing, blending together, the contrast between it. And then that way, I'd find that would actually be a little progressive, because it would equate what would be presented as a, like, traditional high art form with what some people would view as demeaning work. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I see your point. A couple things I would say in response. One is that geisha are, contrary to popular belief, not sex workers. Now, they do mention, now Miyokichi does mention that the place she works is being closed down because of, I think, a prostitution law, right? So, like,
prostitution law.
So I don't know if she's doing sex work, or, like, the facility she works in is, like, part geisha thing, part brothel, and it's just now we don't know.
I'm convinced that she is, and I'll tell you why. Because when she's laying with Sukeroku later, she says, like, you know, I tried these things with Kikuito, for example.
Right.
And Sukeroku recognizes that the way that she's treating him is of a similar vein, that it is performance, like I mentioned.
Sure, which I can totally get that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and she says she's going to go work the old men in the country. So I think there's pretty conclusively could say.
Yeah, right, to be a mistress. And also, she admit, you know, even if she's not doing it right now, I mean, she's done it like when she was in China, right? When she got abandoned in China, she said that's what she
That's
sold
true,
her
yeah.
body to survive.
Yeah.
But I guess the other, so regarding her career not being focused on, I guess maybe this is a little bit of a rehash from things I've said when talking about BNA, but I'll try to use like a metaphor to make it a little different. I guess like for
People love each other.
for for a TV show, or any like story or piece of media, it has themes it wants to take a closer look at, things it wants to put its magnifying glass on. Now, it can only put so much under the magnifying glass without making the image blurry. If it tries to make too big of a magnifying glass, it can't get a sharp focus on anything. And if you have a small magnifying glass, to get to something different you want to focus on, you have to move away from a thing that you were focusing on. So I think the show knows what it's about. And it's so much about Rakugo in particular.
Yeah. If I may respond to that point, like you and I have had disagreements on BNA and how, like, particularly that specific point about how it chooses not to show certain things because it knows what it's about. I'm not going to rehash those disagreements here, but I am going to point out I actually do 100% agree with you here in terms of Rakugo Shinju, because there's not a wasted moment in this show. There's nothing I would feel like I would be comfortable cutting out to make way for these scenes. And so I suppose my criticism is more of more of a pipe dream kind of thing. Like, I would like this to be in here, but I understand that it cannot currently go in the format that it's in without costing something else. It's not a simple, zero-sum game here where everyone stands to win. It doesn't work like that in this case. With BNA, I would absolutely argue there's a shit ton of stuff you can cut from that I'd be more happy to have rid of in favor of something else. But again, I'm not rehashing arguments. We're not talking about BNA.
No, we're not. No, that's totally fair though for you.
Your principle, as dark as you put there, I absolutely 100% agree with in this case. It's just, I really wish it did have the room to expand onto that, because I think it kind of unfortunately harms what the message is meant to be about Miyakichi, which is that she's not meant to be viewed as an object. Mm-hmm. But then we don't get the necessary look at her profession to make it give it enough nuance to back that up. If you follow what I mean, by not showing it, it kind of diminishes the whole thing. It's like something you know in the background. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think it should be brought into sharp focus.
Well, here's an outer universe reason, not
TV's
not to do with the
broadcasting
story.
standards.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like the show did air on public television. I want to say it aired on NHK, so I think they probably had a lot. There were probably limitations in terms of the sex work. They just have to pixelate it. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh my god.
No problem. Just pixelate
it. It keeps saying this broadcast is 1080p, but it doesn't look like it.
Zoom in on the dick. The dick shot is a little blurry. We gotta come on. Yep, focus. Zoom. There we go. That's it. Oh yeah.
I brought a wide-angle lens specifically for this one gentleman, and it's not wide enough. No, we're going. Oh, this is getting wrong. This is getting grim now. So we'll leave it there. But yeah, I do absolutely agree with what you say, and it's just I wish that we could see that. But yeah, no. Them's the breaks.
I know. It would be really, if this were like a series of novels, and it were sort of about the wider Japan or Japanese artistic pursuits, I could totally see, give it all the runway it needs,
Hello, Gungo Sorry Robot.
Oh, yes. Hello. Welcome.
Yeah, I mean, Miyakichi, for example, could say that she is a geisha, but does that make it necessarily true? And the funny thing is, when I say that in itself would be interesting to examine, because that in itself is a performance.
Oh yeah, no, that's a good point. And I mean, she could always, she could do both, or, or again,
I'm a
this could
geisha in the same way that me, I'm a radio presenter.
Right. Yes, I'm an actor.
There's some overlap, but it's not technically true.
Yeah. I mean, I also think this could, she could be, that could be 100% true. But again, the law, whatever law it is that we don't know about, but it is probably really familiar to Japanese historians. That law that is sort of specifically about prostitution, like geisha establishments could be collateral damage to that. You know what I mean? As is often the case with a lot of laws, they have unforeseen consequences.
Good old hubris.
Right, right.
Yeah. Or even not even necessarily hubris. I mean, I could buy, for example, like how geisha, like in the past, pre the time frame that these episodes are saying, were viewed as a prestigious thing. You know, because much as I said it was about the sex element, I should mention that there is also other elements to sex work which aren't strictly about the sex, which is, for example, escorting. You know, you go with a client to like a place, or even it could just simply be like people, for example, will hire sex workers not to sleep with them, but just they have someone to fucking talk to. Maybe they've got some. I don't know. Like we're getting into like strange places for this, but you get my point. It's not strictly just about the fucking. So, yeah, like I would love to have seen more of that, like depicted in the show, just so at least Miyokichi could be given a fair shake on her profession, and how that then ties back into Rakugo and maybe normalizes it, normalizes the sex work element. That is because it makes it clear that that is also a performance in itself, and there is a real person behind there, not just an object, which is what Front of Kikiiso says to Yakumo.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, fucking Yakumo, like, if you think that he's, like, off the hook,
no.
beyond being a complete dipshit about the rules and all that, and being a stickler for, like, I don't know, traditional bureaucracy.
What a fucking baby.
His wife is barely fucking cold. And he's like, so, how's it going with Miyokichi? I'm old now and I love a woman led down.
When you get to my age. Yeah, what the what?
When you get to my age, Jesus fucking Christ. Again, hypocrisy though, innit?
Totally. I mean, God.
Oh, can I also talk very briefly about Miyokichi and how she talks with Sukeroku?
Go for it.
I 100% understand how they came together as people who were left adrift.
Yeah.
One again because he steps out of line, and the other, well, because suddenly one day, oh, I'm sorry, the law's changed. Bye bye. Go find something else to do. We're not gonna like give you any support like that. You're out on the streets. Tough shit. You are obsolete now. But I have to say, like, it's very clear from the way that they both interact in that brief scene that she is treating him like a client, I would argue. She certainly doesn't have the same interaction with him as she does Bond, where it feels more intimate. Indeed, note all the interactions she has with him up until that point are ones that discuss, like, get off him, like she's dragging him off like his knee and all that. Mm-hmm. Like she seems disgusted and appalled by him.
Yeah.
But when you've got nothing else left, like, why not take what little connection you can get, even if it is under the, like, I can't ply my trade anymore, so to speak. But there's this guy here who's lost and needs help as well. It really is just like two broken people falling together.
Broken people.
And unfortunately, though, like, I'm not condemning her for it, but like, she clearly shouldn't be using him in that way. But nor in turn should he to her.
Exactly.
And funnily enough, this is now going to lead into the actual consequence of that, which is, whoops, bun in the oven.
Yeah, or not whoops.
Oh, not whoops. Do you mean that was it planned?
I mean,
there's no way Sukeroku plans to have a kid.
Well, not Sukeroku, but what about Miyokichi? I mean, I don't want to like ascribe sort of nefarious motives to her necessarily, but like, I don't think it's necessarily out of the realm of possibility that someone who has just admitted, like, the one thing I don't want in life is to never be alone. Like, she's got this guy, kind of, they're slumming together, and she believes, like, he'll stay with her if he feels obligated to raise his kid. I don't know. Again, like, I'm just putting it out there as a possible motive. I have no idea. I can't remember if they go into this in the show or it's just if I'm totally off base.
There is something I should bring up, though, which is that in the final conversation that Sukeroku and Kikiiso have in the end of episode 9, he mentions, of course, that Miyokichi's pregnant. Mm-hmm. And then he says, I'm leaving, and that's the end of my Rako thing. So, despite all that he has said about preserving Rakugo for the future, evolving it, shaping it,
Yeah.
there is still a breakpoint even for
I know.
him.
Yeah, his dream got crushed when he got fucking, the master booted him out, and now he can't do it
The thing
anymore.
is though, like when he was expelled, like I didn't feel at that point that he was necessarily going to completely give up. I think he's had a pretty hard knock, but I think that the note that the thought that like he has a child on the way, I think that is the thing that's changed.
Totally. Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
if he can't practice Rako, I mean, you said about reputation, all that, and indeed we know there's that really like ridiculous looking like tiny JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character interviewing Kikiso like about his performance. He says, "What a scandal about your fellow apprentice!" Like
Right.
that's public news, so no one's gonna have him like turn up. It's like. God, it's like if you're a comedian, you start throwing around like really anti-Semitic jokes. Like, of course, no one's gonna hire you again. What do you fucking think's gonna happen?
Yeah, it's just the weird. Well, I say weird. The different cultural norms, right? Over there, and yeah, Gogo believes Miyokichi knew what was up as someone who is well versed in servicing men, but keeping babies from happening. That she knew what was up. Who knows? Who knows?
I feel iffy on that because I don't want it to be the case that this show presents her as that kind of manipulative. Where, okay, if I get pregnant by him, then he's bound to me. That, because make no mistake, that's unambiguously vile.
Well, that's
terrible.
Gee, she did swear to get revenge on Bon, and maybe this is like
I thought that was just her being dramatic, to be honest. I didn't feel like it was going to be, unless you're like literally saying like she did that to like try and provoke a response in him in the same way she did with the slap. But I mean,
I think it could be part of it. I think she's dead serious. She's not just dramatic. Like, as someone who's seen the rest of the show, I'm just.
I see. The spoiler effects is here, is it? Well, look,
I don't. That part was not just hot air. Like, she really had her heart broken by Kiku, to the point where this is a real thing, and she reached her limit. I don't know. Like, again, the thing I don't remember. Like, I'm not saying that definitely her revenge is shacking up with Bon and taking away.
You mean Sukeroku?
Yes, sorry, shacking up with Sukeroku and taking away what was important to Kiku.
My revenge for you breaking up with me will be to get back together with you. Wait, this plan does not work.
Well, no, yeah. Well, she I don't think she wants to get back together with him. She just wants him to burn. And yeah, to get with his best friend and take him out of Rakugo, and
he's Rakugon.
Take him like this competition that has fueled Kikuhiku his whole life. This friendly rivalry, this relationship. He said to Sukeroku, "I could live with you forever and watch your Rakugo." That's how much he means to him. To take Sukeroku away and to take that competition for the name of Yakumo out of Kiku's life, what better revenge could there be? That is at the end of episode 9. I mean, you see how much it fucking hurts Kiku that Sukeroku is out of the race.
I totally get your line of thinking there, but I'm just thinking of the implications from a critical perspective of what it's going to say. Like, here we have a character who's long been portrayed, she's a sex worker. She's like clearly got like her way with men, and look at what's happened in the end. Like, I don't know, it feels a bit sketchy to me.
Well, I will just tell you, there's tragedy forthcoming for everyone.
Jesus! I mean, he killed my dad. Like, literally, that's what Kanatsu says at the start. Like, we know Sukeroku is dead. I mean, his gravestone, I'm fairly confident, is in the OP.
Mm-hmm.
So I know he's dead. What happened to Miyokichi, I don't have a clue. But all I can think to myself is like, this is not going to end well. And all I want to happen is I don't mind it not ending well. I just don't want it to like be unfair in like putting the majority of the blame on one character if at all possible. I know that sounds crazy because there's some stories where that's fine. But I mean, I just think it
Right.
would be a bit iffy if, like, here's Miyokichi, the geisha, and her wiles, her wily ways around men have destroyed them. I'm like, that's not a message I really want to hear.
Well, I mean, but she didn't, I mean, I think, she didn't destroy Yakumo, and she didn't. Her thing is like she gets rejected by everyone, is what she said. Like she got left behind by the guy in Manchuria. She got left behind by Kiku. Like she loves the cold ones. I think she's sort of lying to herself about that. But like
She lost the 44 ounces straight out of the fridge.
yeah, right, yeah. Like I don't think that this character doesn't have a history of like leaving broken lives in her wake. If anything, like she she's sort of feeding her need to not be lonely, but also people are not giving her the thing that she really wants, that only becomes clear when Kiku breaks her heart.
New car.
Right, yeah, genuine love and affection, and someone who loves you back and puts everything back into the relationship that they get out of it. And so I think even if this everything I'm saying were to be true, like it wouldn't necessarily be like this is the thing that defines her whole life. This is like an act at the end when she was driven to this by like you said, the changes in the world and this horrible thing that happened in her love life. And I mean, she's a train barreling off the tracks at this point in the show at the end of episode 9.
Oh, it's just like trades again.
Yeah, just like Tsukaroku. I mean, they both are. Like, I can't tell you how, like, when she came in with that giant bottle and Tsukaroku's asleep and she's just like, I brought more sake, baby. And they hop into bed together with the bottle. I'm like, you two are just like on a path to your own destruction. Like, it's clear as day. So I don't know, man. I'm really curious, sort of remembering in broad strokes what happens, but not a lot of the details. I'm really curious to see how you'll react to it.
Oh boy. Well, we know what the content of that scene was, when they were lying on bed and she was all like, undressing and all that. We know what happened next. We know.
I've played Fate Stay Night. I know.
The thing I was going to say was, Tsukaroku just goes, marry me. And Kyoichi's like, wait a minute, what? And no, it turns out Tsukaroku is talking to the sake ball.
Yeah.
Marry me, sake ball.
Yeah.
You're the one thing I need. And of course, he wakes up the following morning. He's still pissed. The bottle's empty. He's like, I killed my fiance. No. Why have I had the ones I love?
Wacky anime hijinks ensue.
Oh dear. And Miyokichi's just there, like, you get the little tear icon just come off her head.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh my god,
he won't be sober for weeks.
So let's see. The next big point I wanted to make, or was it your turn? I don't remember.
Well, I think I've said everything I want to say at the moment. So over to you, my man.
I don't understand Kiku. I don't get it. I mean, from an academic point of view, I get it. But in terms of being able to really put myself in his shoes and understand why he makes the choice he makes, it's very, very hard for me to identify with the decision he makes. And by that I mean, like, choosing, rather than to devote his life to, like, a person, someone he can see and touch and talk to and grow with, like an intangible ideal. Like, I just, like, choosing this idea of Rakugo and this pursuit of a title, and maybe even this feeling you get when you're on stage over another person. It's very, very hard for me to, like, really get in the head of that and get that, because, like, that's just never been me.
Well, I'll say a couple of things to that. The first of which is Kikiiso makes the point of, like, we're going to an age now where men will rely on themselves and women will rely on themselves. Mm-hmm. And if you want my perspective on the philosophy of self-reliance, I absolutely 100% think that people should be self-reliant wherever possible. I'm going to, of course, not say that that's always going to be the case. There are people who simply can't because of various reasons. It could be physical disability, mental, emotional, you name it. But if you are otherwise, like, like not disabled in some way, like if you have the capacity to be self-reliant, you should be. That doesn't preclude you from getting assistance, though. That doesn't preclude you from being connected to other people. But I think that, like, in the case of Miyokichi, for example, like, she wanted, in part, I wonder, to be with Bon, mostly because she loved him, but also because he would give her security. She, like, all she said she was, like, I don't want to work. I want to just support a man, my partner. That's what I want to do for him. Now, by the way, if you've gone, like, if you're in a relationship of that sort where you might be a housewife, for example, whatever, you don't work as your husband does all the way, or even vice versa, whatever way it goes, like, whatever way it cuts, I'm totally okay with that as long as you have an understanding that that's what it is and you're both happy with it. But otherwise, I would be an advocate for the kind of position that Kiku's was putting forward here, which is that people should be self-reliant. Not that, of course, precludes connection and, being, like, intimate with each other. And I'm not even talking necessarily sexually here, I'm talking, like, emotionally. But what I find interesting about that is Sukeroku has got his finger on the pulse of how, like, the future's changing with how people will react to entertainment and media. But Kikiiso, the non-person, like, the person who's not the person, like, the man's man, like, he's not a personable individual, he's 100% correct with how there will be a change over time away from the stereotype gender roles that there are, and people will have to become more self-reliant, Not everyone's going to fall into the nuclear family, even though it's the 1950s at the time, you know what I mean? So his prediction is on point there, I would argue, whether you like it or not.
Oh, yeah.
From what you're saying, though, like, because this is where you and me come from different cliques, though. Like, I'm perpetual bachelor, you are, happily married. And so I can only offer my own biased perspective, which is that in the absence of certainty of, love and connection, then I don't see any issue with you devoting yourself to a career path.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole thing.
I was about to get to that. That's the thing, though. Bon has to make the choice, and I think that in the end, the reason he does that is because Rakugo is the only thing that has given him a close to certainty. Like, other people are, like, unpredictable. Like, he's been abandoned a lot of times in his life,
right?
Particularly prior to the point where he was apprenticed, and that has clearly shaped a lot of his worldview and how he interacts with people, and left him very guarded.
Yeah.
So even though he is better than he was, and that's clear by the way of his interactions with Sukeroku in the bath, like, because there's obviously a scene, like, with them as kids where it's clear Sukeroku in charge of the conversations, dictating its flow, but Kugiso's like the one now actively, like, controlling and playing with him and all that.
Yes.
So it's clear that he has changed for the better, but, like, things like that run deep. They run deeper than I think people realize. And it's not something you just shake off, or even over time. So I think that that's still colouring his perspective somewhat. The Rakugo gives him certainty. It is, like I said before, like in a previous podcast, about how he can get along so well with Sukeroku, but still be, like, not clear on how to deal with people. Because you get into a routine of understanding with a particular person, but then you can be very anxious with people you have no idea, like, how they click and how they work. And with Rakugo, like, it's a formula. I go up, I read, I perform. That's that.
Right.
But with people, who the fuck knows what's going to happen next, to be honest.
Right.
Like, so I think for him, like, it's a case of security and comfort. Like, he is genuinely enjoying Rakugo. That has been the game changer for him. Because otherwise, I think that given time, he probably would have stuck with Miyokichi. But since he's found a certainty in that he's not had throughout the rest of his life, and it's a certainty that gives him joy, well, why would he give that up?
Yeah.
As opposed to a certain amount of uncertainty with Miyokichi that does still give him joy, but...
Right, there's like a fork in the road. Yeah, I mean, and I guess that makes sense. I mean, like, we're kind of painting it as a character flaw of insecurity in a way, but, like, yeah,
I can say all that I've said about character flaws and what is, but I think that in his shoes, I probably would have made the exact same decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, yeah, I mean, I can understand, like, this is a good perspective helping me try to understand where he was coming from. And I mean, you see where he's coming, you see how devoted he is to it and everything like that. But, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just it's not the same as as a person. And I guess I'm just wired differently. And I mean, this is me, right? We've had innumerable conversations off podcasts where I talk about, like, I believe that each human being should be the source of their own happiness. I believe that, like, you know, in not being codependent to be healthy, and that, you know, even in a long, happy marriage like I have, like, that's, I think, still the case that, like, both I am the source of my own happiness, and the same is true for my wife, you know, even though we're building a life together. And I think you can have that. But boy, it just seems like such a lonely, hollow kind of security that you would have. And maybe this is me, like, maybe it's easy for me to talk about taking that risk, or whatever, but, good grief, man. Like, that's just, that's a puzzler.
That he so recognizes that as the old man we see at the very beginning of the show, because he now seems amenable to having an apprentice, because he hasn't had any before.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if this is going to be sort of over the long term, him kind of sort of coming around on the fact that, like, maybe Sukeroku was right. And it's got to burn, because Sukeroku has always been like ahead of him. You know, you had that scene at the end of 9 where Kiku says, like, I've always been aspirationally clinging to his back, and now I just want to kick it. You know, I'm upset. 'Cause, like, for the very first time, it seems like he's gotten ahead of him. He's surpassed him. He's moving on. He knows he's going to inherit the name. But
like, even though he is not obviously anywhere near as, like, socially capable as Sukeroku, and probably never will be, like, it's not a race in that thing. As long as you are capable of living, like, you know, comfortably in the human world, if you want to call it that, if you feel comfortable interacting with people, that's a victory in of itself. So he doesn't even need to be racing him in that point. Like, that's what it, like, when you said about, like, surpassing him, it's not just about the Rakugo skill, it's about who he is as a character and what that amount of confidence brings him.
But you can see how despondent he is whenever the moment it feels like Kiku has a leg up and he's ahead in the race. Sukeroku's like, I'm not running the race anymore. I haven't really thought about Rakugo in a while. I'm thinking about moving to the country and raising a kid. You can see how that will be incredibly maddening to Kiku. Like, what? All this time, Yakumo matters so fucking much to you whenever you're doing really well and you're getting to go on trips with Master and you're getting to go to the fucking China during the war and everything. But as soon as I take over, oh, who cares about the Yakumo? I just want to raise my son in the country. Fuck you. Like, I could totally see how he'd be so upset about that. 'Cause, like, it's, you know, it is, like, what is inheriting the title of Yakumo if you're not earning it in competition with your rival for him? If he's just given it, like, it doesn't, like, what meaning is there in that? And I mean, maybe he's deceiving himself. Maybe I'm wrong too. Like, maybe he's not choosing an art Rakugo over a person Miyokichi. Maybe he's choosing one person over another. Maybe he's choosing Sukeroku and sort of and how much Rakugo and Sukeroku in his life and his mind up to that point are, like, basically the same thing.
Well, we said before, like, about how they are essentially going to be the, like, stewards of two different types of Rakugo going forward. Sukeroku being the evolving kind that fits the times, and Kiku is, like, the more traditional one. Like, if he, you know, if he doesn't fulfill his own function of doing like that stewardship of traditional Rakugo, it could potentially die out.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's part of it, and that's of course only in opposition to what Sukeroku's doing. If Sukeroku is like all into the traditional stuff, as inexplicable as that might be to us to conceive, then well, Kikusa wouldn't need to be doing what he's doing, does it?
Yeah.
Hmm. Right, I have no more talking points. Do you have anything else you want to add, Doc?
The show is great.
It's so good. This is one of those rare shows that I feel like, when I say this does not automatically make them better than other anime. But what I want to point out is, again, although maybe it would still lose something, like this is a show that you could easily turn into live action if you wanted. Now, that's not a value statement that live action makes it better. I'm thinking in the vein of 91 Days, which was just a gritty crime drama. It was great. But there is a time and a place, like, for a more sober look at, like, history, changing times, changing attitudes, the way that people and societies morph over time, sometimes in response to each other, how they can influence each other, rather than it just being very cartoony, as sometimes anime can be. I think, though, that nonetheless, this anime like does a great amount of stuff. Like, I mean, also like when Sukeroku when Kiku sees Sukeroku walking away, and then we get that thing like where he's falling into black. That itself is pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when I make that assessment that you could turn this into live action, I think that what I'm trying to say by that is just that it has such a clarity of intent that the story and the way it's presented shine through regardless of how you present it. That doesn't mean that if you present it differently, it'll immediately be as good. It could be worse. It could be better. But to me, it feels like it has a clarity to it, which is great. It's just a wonderfully compelling character drama. It has legitimate things to say about how tradition shouldn't rather at all come at the cost of one's soul, even if you want to call it that. How it can also give people a foundation to grow from. But, there are tensions to be found between a person and the art they perform. I am super impressed by this. It has lived up to its reputation and then some thus far. I still feel a bit iffy on Miyokichi's role in this, but I have to concede, whereas I wouldn't in other shows like BNA, that if they were to give her time, it would come at the cost of something else that is necessary for the show to function, or would otherwise be damaged by its omission. And that is one of those unfortunate things where that's not a fault of the show; it is a fault of the format. And well, maybe television needs to do a bit of evolving in the same way that Rakugo did. I don't know. But again, I do also appreciate how this show, like implicitly via its existence, shows that Rakugo can evolve, can reach a wider audience, and can change for the better, at least in terms of will present it in such a way that isn't actually regular people or even human beings doing the Rakugo, but will still show you why the art form is worth preserving, but also why it needs to change. All right. Shall we rate the episode, Stock?
Let's do it.
Okay, I'm going to go first this one. For everything I've said, and also just being like genuinely solid entertainment, I will give these episodes 7, 8, and 9. I will give them 4.75 recitals of someone's story whom you absolutely hate, and you're doing it as a dick move to piss them off.
Well, I am going to I'm going to give this show 5 bad breakups out of 5. Because
nice.
I
mean, nice about the number, not nice about the breakups.
Right. Yeah, I think this set of episodes just does everything it wants to do. It does it right. It does it really well. It is incredibly focused, but also like it's got a lot of different things going on. The way it's directed and what it wants to say, it's like really well done, and it's multi-layered and kind of dense. Like there's some scenes we didn't talk about, some conversations we didn't talk about, like between Sukeroku and Miyokichi, like at these religious festivals, and Like, I don't know, man. There's just so much cool stuff that we could talk about forever. But yeah, I'm gonna go 5 for 5 on this set. It's masterpiece material, man.
Yeah, right is. Right then, we will leave it there, ladies, gentlemen, MBs. I'll just quickly throw out again that if you've enjoyed this particular podcast and you want to be catching it as it goes live and maybe even interact with us while we're doing it, getting questions to us, talking to us in chat, because this is private normally. If you're not already subscribed to our Patreon, please do check that out at patreon.com/waruideshou. Get yourself on the $5 tier, it gives you everything. Tons of benefits, including Discord access, where we run like group watches and other things, party games, you name it. Plenty of good stuff to be found there. Doc, where can people find you on the desolate digital wasteland that is the internet?
You can find me at The Subtle Doctor on Twitter, talking about all kinds of nerderies. There's a lot of Japanese wrestling tournaments that are about to start and have just started. Wouldn't be surprised if I was tweeting about that in the next few days.
Chainsaw Man? Be on the Chainsaw Man?
Oh, that's right. Look, yeah, still... I wish I wasn't done with Chainsaw Man. Like, I'm caught up, so I'm having to wait for the chapters to come out. I devoured it, and it's broke me. Like, in a lot of ways, like, it made me slow down reading a lot of other manga I was reading because I just had to, like, be sad about Chainsaw Man. It's just like, fucking shit. Like, this is rough, man. But the Spy Family still reading, Kaiju number 8 when it comes out, and I am trying to power through the rest since The Promised Neverland ended. I'm trying to read all of that.
Ooh, nice.
Before the season 2. I think I've gotten to I feel like I'm past the point where if there is a season 2 and they pace it like they did season 1, I've gotten past what I think the ending point will be. But who knows? I mean, they may try to stuff the whole rest of the thing into season 2. Don't know. But I feel like I've gotten through another season's worth of material, and a lot to say about that. I think it continues to be pretty good. I think, I'm just reading a lot of Shonen Jump stuff. It's really good. So if you want to talk about Shonen Jump or wrestling or Ultraman or Rakugo, at me, if you please.
Definitely. Give this man a follow. Give him all your follows. For me, you can find me at Shadon1010 on Twitter. I am usually angry. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. I'm usually furious about something or another. There you go. Anyway, I'll also just mention as well that if you have been watching this on free swear and you don't want to support us financially, that's fine. Type stuff. Strings are tight. I would only ask, therefore, that you just, give us a like, follow, share, subscribe, smash all the social media buttons. You've done this tango before. Why am I telling you again? You know what to do with this. You push the buttons, you get the follows, it's done. Great, whoop-de-doo. But anyway, on that note, this is currently Friday, of course, so we'll leave it there. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend wherever you are in the world. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy. That's for you and your loved ones, your friends, family, colleagues, etc. People you generally like. If you don't like them, fuck them. I told you I was angry. So there you go. But on that rosy note, definitely take care, everyone. It's been a pleasure having you here in the audience as always, be it if you're watching live or if you're watching it on demand later. We will see you soon. In fact, next time we'll be talking about Rakugo Shinju. We'll be concluding season 1, so don't miss that. Until next time, though, that's been Doc from, Mr. Tennessee himself. I've been Shadon. Embrace you, everyone, to the ends of the universe. Good night.
Bring back the